Hi, my name is Andy Ayim and I'm the founder of the Angel Investing School. And over the last 6 years, I've invested in over 17 startups. And today I want to talk about money management and angel investing. And you don't hear about this topic a lot, right? Like, how do these people and these individuals even make money in the first place to be able to afford the privilege, really, of investing into early stage startups? Typically, I see three main sources. There's people that have inherited capital, right? It's been passed down from their family, it's been passed down by their parents, and they use that money to invest into startups, sometimes through a vehicle known as a family office, but we'll cover that later. The other way is that they've earned the money themselves. So they may work in a high-paid profession like an investment banker or a professional lawyer or someone that has become a master at their craft and maybe a consultant, and maybe they earn a lot of money every year, and therefore not only are they eligible to become an angel investor, which we cover in another video, but they can afford to put some of that money at use when investing into startups. And then our third person is usually that person that's often running a business successfully themselves or has sold a business themselves. And that could be anyone from a property investor and developer to someone that owns a media agency and maybe has taken some money off the table or has sold that agency. So those are the three main sources of capital typically when getting started on this journey of investing. And the reason is because when you're entering into this journey, you understand that there's a spectrum when it comes to risk and reward and putting your money at risk when investing. Right here on the far right, you have things like government bonds in the UK, which are really safe, but because they're safe, it's low risk and therefore low reward. You get a lower interest rate back. Right? Then you have something like investing into stocks and shares, and it's really high risk if you're investing into a single stock. But actually, over the last 10 years to 15 years, we can see when you invest into these tracker funds, which invest into 100 plus companies at once, it gets on average about 7% a year. So again, moderate risk with moderate reward, right? Depending on your strategy. Then you've got property, which I would class as actually low risk, low reward if you're doing something simple like buying a property in a city centre like Manchester, Birmingham, London, and renting that out, right? It's a tried and tested thing over the last 50 odd years. Then you have angel investing, and this is really risky, but can lead to real rewards. But in order to do so, you need a real diversified portfolio. And what we mean by that is instead of saving up your £20,000 and investing into a single startup, no, you need to think about how that £20,000 can be stretched to invest into 10 or more companies. Right? So that's the type of mentality that you need to have in order to manage your budget appropriately. One of the biggest mistakes we see from angel investors who are just getting started out is that they're really passionate about it, they get really excited, and they invest more than they should have into their first few deals, right? More than they can afford to lose. And it was out of excitement. It's only when they get onto startup 3, 4, or 5, then they're more measured in thinking through, actually, how do I allocate enough capital to each startup so that I can build out that portfolio? And the reason that's important is because if 70% of those businesses fail in the first 3, 4 years, then actually you're relying on just 2 or 3 businesses to really make your return for you. And that's how it really plays out in practice. That's why venture capitalists use that same kind of pattern to rely on something that they call the power law. And the power law means that a small number of companies each year grow so big that accounts for all of my losses in my portfolio. And that's what that business model is predicated against. Venture capitalists are in the business of saying no, just like you as angel investors, but their hope is that they can land on 1 or 2 big hits that end up being so big, it pays for the rest of the portfolio. And you're thinking in the same way as an angel investor, except your wins don't have to be as big as a venture capitalist because you didn't raise money from anyone else. So when thinking about managing your money as an angel investor, you need to really have that budgeting mindset of setting aside an amount of money, really being disciplined around that money, and making sure that you're putting that money into a number of startups rather than just one startup, which is really risky. So those are the kind of tips and tricks to really think proactively around the money mindset that you need in order to be successful at angel investing. So now that we've touched on the money mindset that's required when being an angel investor, I want to share a really helpful example so you can walk through with me and understand what it looks like in practice. So you know me already, I'm Andy. And the Angel Investing School as a business did really well last year. So I've got £10,000 saved aside and I want to invest into startups this year. I'm really hopeful. I want to try and get into 10 startups. But I'm really fearful at the same time because I feel like these startups are not going to take my £1,000 off me. It's not enough. They want me to invest more. Who's going to entertain such a small ticket size? That's what we refer to that amount of money. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look on OpenAngel and I'm going to identify a few angel syndicates that really caught my eye. Right? I've seen one called Green Angel Syndicate and they invest into climate change. I'm really passionate about that. So I'm going to join that syndicate. How much is the membership fee for a year? I can afford that. All right, and now that I've joined that syndicate, I'm around more experienced investors. And what that syndicate's doing is, actually, they're investing 150,000 into the startup, but they're allowing for us to invest as little as £1,000 to contribute to that 150. So now I can be part of a pool of investors that are investing 150K into this climate change startup, even though I only put £1,000 at risk. So that's my strategy. I'm going to find other angel syndicate groups that I can put my £1,000 to use in getting into other startups alongside with them. And when I get experience, maybe at startup 8 or 9, actually for that last deal, I might set up something called an SPV, which we cover in another video, a special purpose vehicle, so that I can pool now my other investors that I've learned and built relationships with into deals that I'm finding. And collectively, we might put 25 or 30,000 into this startup, even though I just contributed £1,000 in there. So those are the different ways that I can invest my £10,000 budget into startups using platforms like SPVs and those kind of vehicles, as well as angel syndicate groups, rather than thinking that I always need to invest directly myself. So we've covered in this video exactly what the money mindset is that you need to adopt to become an angel investor, and hopefully you found that example really helpful so you understand what it looks like in practice.